難易度 Neko へ OK グッドラック
When the famous actors, musicians, and athletes of the 1980s wished to cement their place in American pop culture, they turned to celebrity photographer Harry Langdon. One by one, he would direct their gaze into the camera, with their heads back and long hair. It was a look so many celebrities of the decade sought that one could hardly call themselves a star if they hadn't been photographed by Harry Langdon. But in 1984, a man named Dr. Frederick Lenz commissioned Langdon for a series of photo shoots. The glamour shots that resulted began to appear across California, on college campus poster boards, newspapers, and magazines, frequently filling up the entire printed page. But it was unclear who Dr. Frederick Lenz was.
Well, by now, probably most of you have seen this photograph of this man.
Some of his portraits would pose questions. Others, Dr. Lenz would devote to listing his past lives, where he'd been a Japanese Zen master and a Tibetan monk. But his most widely circulated portrait would feature only his face, along with a simple call to action: meditate with Rama.
Hi, my name is Rama, and today I'm here in the middle of eternity, where I am every day. Thousands have become familiar with the gentle expression and halo of luminous hair that has become the trademark of Zen Master Rama.
You believe Dr. Lenz is enlightened?
Yes, I do. Fully enlightened.
Dr. Lenz seemed to appear out of nowhere, brute forcing his way into the public consciousness. To the casual observer, his visibility campaign seemed nothing more than an advertisement for meditation classes. But to his hundreds of already existing students, his face was meant to reach those who'd been followers of his for centuries, reminding them of who they really were and calling them back to him in order to finish their liberation.
We need to scour the globe for his students and reunite them, because we need to save the world from some unknown evil, or the evil of the world.
For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Frederick Lenz would attempt to corral his followers and lead them across America, away from the critics and away from family and friends who were desperately trying to find him.
Lenz was a clever liar. He was entertaining. He presented himself as successful, and this kind of visibility that he offered was appealing to a lot of young seekers that wanted to make money and be like him.
In order to complete their liberation, each follower must master not only the disciplines of the ancient world,
One more time. Come at me. Come.
but prove their supremacy in the modern world by climbing to the top of America's most profitable industries by any means necessary.
Most of them didn't know anything about coding. Sometimes they'd get caught, put on literal blacklist because they were destroying code.
To find out what it was like to be inside, I spoke with a former follower who joined his organization when he was 20 years old.
Like, if you were to ask, like, how deep did I go? I looked forward to jumping in front of the bullet to save him. I looked forward to that. I was like, I can't wait till his life is on the line, and I'm the one who gets to save him.
And one of Lenz's most committed public detractors, he threatened to take it all away from him.
How many followers of Frederick Lenz did you attempt to deprogram?
It had to be at least 100.
How many of those would you say were successful?
I think all but 4.
This is the story of Dr. Frederick Lenz, or as he was better known, Zen Master Rama.
It was a psychological, potentially arguable, physical abusive relationship with this guy. It was not as it was presented.
I'm a teacher of enlightenment. That is to say, I'm enlightened, and I enjoy being a vehicle of the expressions of the universe.
How did you happen to meet Frederick Lenz?
It started in college, where I was in my senior year, and I saw on the walls of my college these beautiful, shiny posters about learn how to meditate from the Boston Meditation Society. So my fiance at the time and I went to one of these classes, and at first they talked a lot about we meditate so we can find enlightenment. We can be calmer and more connected spiritually. And what historically those who have found enlightenment, what true enlightenment looked like in our historical art, this sort of golden glow in the paintings, right? And so some of us who are spiritually sensitive enough, when you're around one of these enlightened beings, you can actually see the golden glow. So afterwards, I would kind of go up and ask them questions and say, historically, what was it like? What blah, 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 blah. They were like, listen, you can tell that you are sort of, your aura or whatever vibrates higher than most people. You must have studied this in past lives. Listen, we follow one of these guys that we believe is enlightened. And we'd love you to check him out. There is going to be a $500 a plate dinner in New York. And they were going to pay for the whole thing. They were like, listen, we've got so much from this guy we follow named Dr. Frederick Lenz, or what we call as Rama. We've gotten so much from him we want to give back. And we make tons of money. So we're happy to pay your way. And we were like, okay, because we're like 20. We all drive down together. We go to this place, and there's like 300 people there, all in tuxes, and a lot of them are doctors, and lawyers, computer programmers, which I noticed sort of a pattern in all of that. And then this tall guy who has sort of like blondish curly hair, kind of like this, but bigger. At some point, I saw him in like a leather jacket and like, Ray-Bans. And he did like a 5-minute monologue stand-up routine.
In other words, meditation has been turned into a tool of the bourgeoisie. No, I'm sorry. Wrong. I get, I'm in different ones at different times, and I got to bring it around. Get it straight. Sorry, so this is the America.
And then he said, okay, everybody, we're going to dim the lights and let's meditate. For those who have been with me before, don't close your eyes like you usually do. Just like have it soft, focus on me.
Then open your eyes a little bit and watch me. You're not just watching me, the body. You're watching the energy here. Relax your eyes, not looking too sharply, gazing. I'm just watching.
He just closed his eyes and he was doing a thing. I don't remember. Within 30 seconds or a minute, the whole room glowed gold, and I got this wave of euphoria that I never experienced. I was like, oh my God, if this dude can do that as an enlightened being, in minutes, I'm in for life.
This man can turn a room gold in 60 seconds, read one of Lenz's Bay Area advertisements. Imagine what it can do to anyone. It's a claim that we can echo for years.
Turns the room gold, seems to like, kind of like if you looked into the sun squared.
Even decades later, it's difficult to find discussion of Frederick Lenz without some mention of the golden light. But not everyone had such a theatrical introduction.
What was it then, Annie, that made you go, wow?
Well, first of all, I didn't go, wow. I listened to his presentation. I thought he was witty. I thought he was a nice person. And I resonated with the things he said. Then he said, let's meditate. And I had a good meditation. I had a very good meditation.
Dr. Lenz's brand of meditation was not unlike what was already beginning to catch on in the West, with the goal of achieving better focus and control over one's emotions by quieting the mind.
Our mind is always in motion. You'll notice we're always thinking something. Worried about tomorrow, bills, we're thinking, images are flashing through our mind, seeing somebody you'd like to see, remembering something that happened in the past, our desires, our feelings, feeling guilty, feeling expectation. Meditation is the opposite of that.
The basic technique is learned in seconds. A student focuses their attention on the rise and fall of their breath or a place on their body. Keeping eyes closed is common, although Lenz often asked his students to look in his direction, a technique he called gazing. And when random thoughts intrude, the student gently brings their attention back to the focal point.
I would wake up at like 6 in the morning, which I'd never done in my entire life, and I would immediately meditate for 45 minutes. I was so motivated and focused. I was a 4.0 student for my last semester out of being a B- student forever.
I would like to teach you to look into the depths of yourself, and I'm afraid you're going to be shocked. You're going to find out that you're much more beautiful than you realize.
I suddenly started loving running. And so I would go for a run for 50 miles, come back. I didn't have school that day. I would work hard at work at Friendly's, scooping ice cream, but being super focused and being like the best I can be.
And that you can be happy even in the most adverse circumstances if you can do this one thing. Learn to make your mind quiet, still your thoughts.
Oh, and a lot of times I would meditate late at night and find that I really didn't need a lot of sleep. So I'd be working extra hard, reading books that he suggested I read on top of all of my homework.
Because then it's as if a curtain opens, and behind that curtain is light, ecstasy, perfection, beauty, and reality. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's only life. And we all live forever.
So it's hard for someone to go, I think you're in something destructive, because it doesn't look that way in the beginning.
But in 1989, a computer programmer from Oregon named Brenda Kerber, who'd been a meditation student of Lenz's for the past 3 years, went missing. Others would disappear soon after, as well as students cutting off contact with their families after they began attending Lenz's workshops. Reports even surfaced of students giving up custody of their children in order to follow the meditation group across the country.
My fiance and I, we lived together. We went to Boston to meet with one of the inner circle. And we had dinner with him, and he talked about relationships and energy and stuff like that. And on the way home, we spontaneously, the both of us at the same time, realized we shouldn't be together. Because it's such a drain on our path of work. And we talked about quickly how we were going to split up all the stuff that we own. It's like, oh, you can get those CDs, and these CDs will be mine, and those books and my books. It's like, do you want the bed or do you want the couch? She's like, I'll take the couch. And then a few days later, she was like, I don't want to leave. You know, I really love you and I want to stay together. And I was like, oh, you're so silly. It's just going to destroy us.
So who was Dr. Frederick Lenz? Frederick Lenz dedicated his first book, titled Lifetimes, True Accounts of Reincarnation, to an individual named Sri Chinmoy. In Lenz's second book, Sri Chinmoy received not only the dedication, but credit for the ideas presented in the book itself, disclosing that Lenz had been a student of Chinmoy's for the past 10 years.
Continues to astound with his Herculean feats of strength.
A guru, a genuine guru, really genuine, Sri Chinmoy.
He is the holder of the United Nations Medallion for Peace.
In 1970s Queens, New York, there were few local figures that baffled the media quite like Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh, who'd adopted the honorific title of Sri before leaving Bangladesh for the United States. After settling into Queens, Chinmoy began putting his face on posters around college campuses, offering free meditation classes to the public. His following is nearly always described as increasing, and by the mid-70s, reporters found that he'd accumulated hundreds of students, most of them at college.
Little by little, as we meditate every day and we see twice a week, we notice, or I notice, that I'm so happy, and I feel God's presence so much of the time.
Chinmoy attempted to be a living example of what a focused mind, conditioned by frequent meditation, was capable of, and would invite local press to witness and perform endurance challenges, which he called creative miracles. The first was a 24-hour writing session where he produced 843 poems. This works out to about 35 poems per hour, or one every 100 seconds.
We just don't know if there is a world record for the number of paintings done in the shortest possible time. So on tonight's edition of 13 Major found that man, a guru, living in Queens.
The pace of the second challenge is 16,000 paintings in 24 hours, averaging now only a few seconds per piece.
I have to I'm going to paint. I just allow myself to be carried away by
hard labor as well as an act of love.
Through meditation, Chinmoy claimed to have achieved what he called a oneness with the soul. In a type of psychedelic state, he was known to spontaneously slip in and out at all times of the day.
I noticed as you were there was rapid eye movement on your part.
my consciousness was flying from one plane to another.
This facial expression Chinmoy adopted became the focus point of his group meditations, with students staring into the flickering whites of his eyes as they cleared their minds of thought.
Sri Chinmoy is like a visitor from this other world to this world to show his followers to reach this other world.
At home, students would substitute the photograph, as instructed by his 1978 meditation guru. Quote, the best type of meditation comes when you enter into my consciousness by looking at a picture taken of me with a high meditative consciousness. When I'm one with the Supreme, do not think of it as a picture of a human being.
Stay with me like you're a guardian angel.
Chinmoy would soon have enough of it where he would take the stage, establish a oneness with the Supreme, and then deliver to a crowd of thousands a new kind of miracle. Improvising melodies with each one just long enough to channel the Supreme before moving By the late 1970s, Sri Chinmoy's multi-sensory meditation experience had extended far beyond Queens, New York.
There are over 125 Sri Chinmoy centers around the world. What goes on in them? What happens in the centers?
My students all over the world, wherever there are centers, they pray and meditate, and they read my writings. And also, as you know, I've composed thousands of songs.
Much of Chinmoy's success was owed to the recruitment efforts of his students, and old newspaper classifieds show that Frederick Lane spent much of his early career as a traveling meditation instructor, leading workshops on behalf of the Sri Chinmoy centers.
Tonight, as we meditate together, I'm going to be bringing out some kinds of tension and surging through you in a lot of different ways to show you inside what it feels like to meditate.
He went by one of the Sanskrit nicknames that Chinmoy had given to all of those in his inner circle.
I decided to study with Sri Chinmoy through Atmananda. He was the #1 disciple bringer for Chinmoy around the world. He was very good at it. He was a brilliant student.
Oh yeah, there's a definite battle between the light and the dark. The network always wins though. We run the galaxy.
What was he a professor of, and where was he professing?
He was a professor of American literature at State University of New York at Stony Brook.
So I can only suggest that you learn to be what my friend Atrocity called a perpetual beginner. Because if you feel that you're knowledgeable, you may be. But to be a perpetual beginner is the happy part.
Being a student is much more fun than being a teacher.
Lenz's experience as a professor gave him a natural ease and authority over his college-aged audience members. And as he traveled the country gathering recruits, he began to realize an opportunity.
He would give a lecture for Chinmoy to recruit people into Chinmoy circles. At the very end, he'd be up there sitting cross-legged on the table, and he was channeling spiritual light. And he would look at people, and like spiritual light would come out of his eyes. Well, that's a big no-no, because that is up for the big not for the little tiny Atmananda to do.
And by 1980, Lenz's workshops were no longer associated with the Street Chinmoy Centers, but sponsored by his own organization.
He took off with a handful of other Street Chinmoy followers, convincing them that he was the one and the master of this kind of following.
As I grew up spiritually, as I entered into enlightenment, I saw the limitations of my own teacher, who was a very powerful occultist, but who I thought was, to some extent, limiting others in their spiritual growth.
Come with me, I'm the new enlightened one.
It wouldn't be easy for Lenz to rise out of Street Chinmoy's shadow. Not only did Chinmoy have the adoration of thousands, he'd been hosting weekly meditations at the United Nations headquarters. Every Tuesday, his students could watch him slip into the Supreme in front of some of the most influential people in the world. In order to take followers away from Chinmoy, Lenz would need to establish himself as a guru of greater impact.
What are you saying he was offering the students? So he was offering the students spiritual energy. At a certain point, I came to learn that we had studied with him specifically for hundreds or thousands of lifetimes, and we've all grown towards enlightenment because of working with him. And so what he was offering the students was spiritual energy.
I sit with my students and meditate with them. I channel the Kundalini, the energy, directly into them. I bring them down to consciousness. What they would do in 100 years of meditation.
Give us spiritual energy. We will go home with that spiritual energy and meditate with that.
Kundalini, that's how you get the most of it. There, opening you up, parts of you. Maybe you haven't felt since you were a child.
And when Lenz announced his separation from Chinmoy, it's reported that he was able to cipher about 40% of the students on campus. But even without a star recruiter, Chinmoy's following only increased throughout the 1980s, and his students were beginning to perform great as a In 1986, the world record for his consecutive underwater pogo stick games was set. The new champion used his platform as an opportunity to promote the Street Chinmoy Centers. Elsewhere in New York, a student shattered the record for continuous hand clapping with 50 hours of nonstop applause. And he did so, he said, to honor his guru. By 1982, Chinmoy claimed to have completed over 140,000 paintings, as well as over 4,000 musical compositions. Lenz would need his own way of showing the fruits of his enlightenment.
Now, I have written a number of pieces of music to meditate to.
I asked, what is dancing? Dancing.
Zazen was Lenz's rock new age thing. And he was credited as writing all the songs. And I would listen to it all the time. All the time. I mean, all the time.
Lenz was joined by three of the students with Zazen, and throughout the 1980s they produced a number of albums with tracks like Death is Sexual and Gandalf the Wizard.
I loved listening to it, but I was controlled to love listening to it. It was actually fine music. It was perfectly good.
This music is composed in other dimensions. That's where I go to compose it. Then it's brought here into this world from the planes of light, and it's played by some of my students.
Chinmoy had become well known for drawing talented musicians into his world. Guitarists Carlos Santana and John McLaughlin both spent much of their early careers making music dedicated to the Supreme. Zazen was stacked with talent as well, with Grammy-nominated Joaquin Miller providing lead guitar. And Lenz would incorporate this music into his live workshops, often using it as a focal point for group productions.
When I go through the music that they play with my aura, I wash out anything impure. So there's only light in the music. It's perfect music.
Students were asked to demonstrate their spiritual growth as well. Lenz required the submission of essays detailing each student's progress in their twice-daily meditations, and several supplementary disciplines such as the reading and rereading of recommended books, and martial arts taught by Sensei Lenz himself.
Martial arts is an ancient science. It was codified by Buddhist monks.
He would wear a gi, the karate white gi with a black belt. And they both looked like they had just come out of the stuff like that.
I will be extending an invisible energy field that we call the ki, that we gain from deep meditation and samadhi. This has rarely been seen outside of the Orient. Is there anything you can do?
His inner circle would run at him and he'd go, ha, like that with his hands, and then they'd fall down.
What I want to do is interfere with their minds. The mind is the ultimate weapon. So they're going to come at me and I'm just going to project a wave of energy out of my body to disable them, right? Good. Say it! One more time. Come at me. Say! For a moment, a wave of energy sweeps through their body, and they don't know where they are, what world they're in, what dimension they're in.
It's embarrassing. It's cringy, right? How bad it was. But man, did it look good when I was in the room. Holy shit, that guy could do it.
Lenz seemed to take the strictness of routine from Chinmoy, who frequently enrolled his students in marathons to advertise the center, and was known for waking his students up at 3 a.m. for morning meditations. But Lenz took what he called a Western-oriented approach to enlightenment. If students weren't progressing in their careers and increasing their salaries, they weren't making full use of spiritual energy.
In this modern world, the more money you make, the better meditation you're having.
It's difficult to find a consistent membership price for Lenz's meditation. The introductory seminars are usually advertised as either free or for a small cover charge. But as attendees became regulars, tuition could range anywhere from $600 a month to $2,500 a month.
I believe it was $20 a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that what you pay?
No, since then my career has advanced significantly, and I pay approximately $1,000 a month then.
For me, it started free, and then it was like a sliding scale. Like if you could pay $100 a month, that would be helpful. And it got to the point where I might have been paying $300 or $500 a month scrambling.
To cover the ever-increasing tuition, students were encouraged to switch classes. At Lenz's suggestion, many of them turned to the fledgling field of computer programming.
A person who meditates who becomes a programmer is kind of like a duck in a happy pond. You're in the right situation for many, many reasons.
He believed, or he taught, that computer programming was very similar to really good meditation because of where your brain goes.
Computers are fascinating because the mindset necessary to work with advanced structures in programming and in design is exactly what we do in advanced meditation. It's exactly the same mindset.
I had credit cards at age 21 that I was maxing out because of the promise of just in a few months you're going to be making $100, which was an unbelievable amount of money back then.
According to ex-followers, Lenz told his students that they'd all been software developers together in past lives in the lost city of Atlantis. And he appears to have registered a corporation under the title High Priest of the First Diocese of the Californian Church of Atlantis.
The computers in Atlantis were infinitely evolved, all processing electricity.
But if his students had known how to code thousands of years ago, they would need a refresher.
The if you're not familiar with the world of programming, you might take a simple course in it, and then there are two ways to plunge into it. One is to go to a short-term computer school where you spend a year either doing the very course.
Talked a lot about the importance of programming computers and artificial intelligence and relational databases, which is like a 3 or 4D database instead of like a flat spreadsheet. And other nerds like kind of understood it, and there were lots of people who were like, I don't know what he's saying, but they like worked really hard to figure it out.
He was knowledgeable about computer programming.
As far as I know, he was like a Steve Jobs. He understood the rudimentary stuff, but he was just trying to inspire people to go out and make a great deal of money.
Obviously, it's just not for you.
But not every student waited until they knew how to code before entering the field. A pattern began to form of students packing out their resumes with proficiencies in programming languages and listing one another as previous employers who would vouch for them.
If you don't have experience, you come up with the names of some companies. Then you have somebody say, yes, they worked for me there, a friend.
Most of them didn't know anything about coding, and they would use each other as references onto their resume and list all of the computer programming jobs they've had, which they never did, with the intention that they were going to do the best job they had, and they had this enlightened being's energy, so they should be able to persevere. So what normally would take 4 or 8 hours at their work, they would work 12, 14, 16 hours looking at books, copying code, doing all of this stuff that they could until they actually started understanding it, usually.
The girl that I worked with at Citicorp who was doing this was on the phone all the time with the other people in the cult, and she would use me as a source of information. She would ask me questions that were totally unrelated to her specific job. They were obviously, she was trying to help these other people. So basically, it would be the blind leading the blind.
Sometimes they'd get caught, put on a literal blacklist because they were destroying code.
As one newsletter that circulated among the industry's hiring managers stated, Lenz's followers were, quote, inserting themselves virus-like on accounts in the tri-state area where they proceeded to wreak havoc. But not all who lied their way into these companies were exposed. Many learned the software languages quickly enough to begin rising the ranks into high-income positions, and they were advised to use this money to reinvest in their enlightenment.
You get more money, which tells you how more enlightened you are, and since we're simple monks, we give this money back to him as a gesture of thank you. And then he takes the money as the gesture, and then he gives us more spiritual energy, which lets us meditate better, to program code better, and then give him more money.
To study enlightenment requires a commitment, and part of that commitment is a person's willingness to go out and work to make the money to pay for their own way.
How much money do you think you spent involved with Zen Master Rama?
In cash layouts, for the 5-month involvement from January to May 1985, I gave out a little over $30,000 in cash.
And an exceptional person, of course, will pay even more, will give even more, because they not only want to just pay for their own way, but they wish to make enlightenment more available to others.
Because you were a spiritual student of his and you come to him and go, I have this great idea for a computer program or a database program, he would become CEO of every single one, like dozens of these companies.
Lenz credited himself with developing software through the 1980s and 90s that he claimed was used by hundreds of American companies, both commercial and military. And it's reported that some of his more successful programmers were providing Lenz with upwards of $5,000 per month each.
If I were to keep on going and had a full-time job out of college, I would have been paying as much as I could, $1,000 a month, which was $2,000 a month, and living with a number of other Lenz followers by sleeping on floors or packing into rooms, so we didn't have much overhead in eating ramen or just vegetables or whatever.